not part of this GD. I have not taken your name.
Sriram, my name is Sriram.
That is what I'm saying. You are not part of this GD. I've already noted names for this GD. Chalo, cool. So we'll start with the GD. Let me take out the names who are participating in this GD. The name is Akash, Arshi, Garvit, Spandan, Piyush, Prudvi, Revan. All right. So you people will be participating in this group discussion. Now let me tell you what are the guidelines for the group discussion. While starting, as soon as I give you the topic, the time for GD will start. You have 1 minute to think, 10 minutes to speak, and then 1 minute to conclude. Right? I repeat, you have 1 minute to think, 10 minutes to speak, and 1 minute to conclude. Once I give you the topic, I will not speak in between. You have to monitor your time. You have to check when to start the GD, when to conclude the GD. I will stop you at the end of 12th minute. Understood? I'll give you the topic now. I'll repeat the topic 2 times. After I have given the topic for the second time, I'll start with the timer. So the topic for this particular GD is Donald Trump in corporate setting. I'll repeat the topic, Donald Trump in corporate setting.
Good evening, my friends. Is it okay if I start the GD?
Yes, go on, Akash.
So should we start?
Okay,
Good evening.
Okay.
guys.
So I would like to start the GD. First of all, I'd like to say that the given topic to us about Donald Trump in a corporate setting is of utmost relevance, seeing nowadays headlines. So basically, there's a lot of buzz around Donald Trump for putting others in trouble and hiding his dark past. So obviously in a corporate setting, he would be in a managerial or in a top level positions and has a negative role.
Yeah, I believe
Before getting into the
if
Donald Trump, let me speak for some time. Actually, I believe before getting into this Donald Trump discussion, I think we should first establish who he is currently. So currently, we know he is the president of the United States, which is the strongest and the most richest capitalist country, and followed by and the stories that we are listening to that indicate his roles in Venezuela as well as in Epstein Islands and further.
I think Donald Trump in corporate setting would be a quite great thing because we believe Donald Trump travels countries to countries making deals for his growth of the country. So may it be the Tesla deal of Elon Musk or the different semiconductor deals with different countries. Uh, yeah. Furthermore, adding on to the point, Donald Trump in a corporate setting would be quite hilarious because sometimes if I might take a leap away, he does kind of things which are a bit uh, on the gut. That just like let's say uh, are planning to acquire Greenland without any prior information, or may it be his involvement with his different countries like Iran, Iraq. So he might, in a corporate setting, come off as someone who's too loud and too childish.
A point I
I
would
would
like
like
to
to
make.
agree with your point. Yes, that is correct. Like uh, as we see it is he can create many problems in a corporate setting, uh, like behaving like a child when he has to like hide his dark past. So yeah, I would like to agree with that.
Yes, I
Another
agree with you. Donald Trump in a corporate setting can be very fatal because he is known for making unreasonable and adverse decisions, like we have seen in the Venezuela matter and also the mass deportation that he has been doing in the US.
One point I would like to put forward is that before Donald Trump was in the center face as the president, he was also an entrepreneur first. So I don't think it is a laughing matter as seeing him in corporate setting, as that was his alma mater in that sense. He came to the power because he had money and because he had some social presence. And so thinking him as a loud guy or a funny guy in public corporate sector would be a wrong establishment.
I feel we are doing well how we are talking about Mr. Donald Trump, but I feel we should establish a framework on how we are going to talk about him. I feel we should work with the past, present, or future model, like how he did in the past, how US had the power in the past, and presently how is doing trade wars and tariff wars to have a hegemony over basically all the world to show the dominance of US and how it could impact in the future as he's doing the capitalism approach, as is said in the GD topic, as it is a basically as a corporate setting. So I'll say because of the past, US has always been the power hegemony after the World War II and NATO alliances. But currently he is shifting to a capitalism as a more of a dominance approach as of the Venezuela news we all have heard, and moreover about the Greenland issue, and moreover all the trade and tariff wars that they are establishing. So I'll open to the floor.
Talking about the present as following your structure, being a devil advocate, I don't think he's doing anything like he's doing allegedly wrong things, but being a devil advocate, if I have to, US has a debt to GDP ratio of 120%, which is more than 120%. If you are the head of a company which has such a big high debt, uh, that I believe we have to take certain decisions which most people don't like. May it be, yeah, now it is debatable whether acquiring Greenland is a good decision or not, but you have to take certain decisions to can please everyone because the company is already in such a big debt. Talking about the crisis it does with Iraq, it was alleged that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. If Iraq had the nuclear weapon, who take responsibility if one day he just goes berserk and throws it in some country? As a powerful nation with big power comes big responsibility. And even if most people didn't agree with his war in Iraq, let's say Iraq threw the bomb in Iran or in some country he didn't have good political ties with, it would be cause an entire massacre or destruction. I am not supporting the war he did with Iraq. There might be other ways to solve it. But what I am trying to throw light is when you are in such a big position of responsibility, you have to do certain things. You can't please everyone.
In response to the GDP to debt ratio, I would like to further add some comment, as in if we compare the US, then there's Japan as well. Japan is currently has the highest debt and GDP ratio as compared to percentage wise. So is it not doing well? Is it not thriving? Is it not still the one of the most developed countries? I think going by GDP and debt ratio, you can't really say if a company is really going well or really going down. It's all a matter of what is going on in the present and what it is going forward to.
I
I
would like to add and agree with you all that, of course, some of the things might not be very pleasing to everyone. He cannot please everyone, but as a uh, as a leader, he is definitely he can lead well, and uh, he might not be good at pleasing everyone. But yeah, you are right. He can like lead very well.
Adding on to the comment that my fellow panelist made about the contrast example with Japan, I even if Japan is already recently in the news, right, since a year, because Japan had negative interest rates, but because of the high growth in inflation and uh, the negative interest rate couldn't keep the economy sustaining for a long period of time. For years, other countries tried to exploit this negative interest rate by borrowing from Japan and investing in other safe assets. So contrasting it to the example of Japan, I don't think Japan as an economy also is taking certain necessary steps. And yes, they are not as evil as US. But again, talking about it, they are not as big as US. The,
Okay, coming
Uh,
back to the topic of Donald Trump, I would like to say about things like he has been having some policies like free make America great again, or use the American population to for whatever labor and works they do. I would like to put forward like companies which are trying to outsource people, when companies are using their own employees instead, is it not a good thing or is it a bad thing?
I mean, a
Definitely, it
company,
is a good
a, com-
thing. Yeah.
a
I'm
company
sorry, you
might
can continue.
employ a company might employ people for any position in two ways. One is internal promotion, and another is you can do recruitment through other apps. So getting outer talent is not necessarily a bad thing, obviously, because it exposes you to new possibilities. And talking about the thing that US having such strict immigration policies as of now, it is not the only issue. Further, US have had other departments set up which are allegedly harassing immigrants harassing people who already have passports and visa. I don't think it is justified. The increasing cases of racism. So given that if Donald Trump were to set up in a corporate structure, I don't think he would be a bad businessman. He would go to great heights. He would push his way to make the company profitable, but his policies would be very conservative. We can talk about the anti-abortion laws in America, the racism. So he would be someone who brings money to the table, but he would be the greatest employee in the company. He would be the darkest employee of the company, and the SEC would be behind the company.
I
I
agree
mean,
with you.
if I were to
Donald
add,
Trump's policies are very controversial, and we have seen the racism and inequality he has uh, done with the people of US. So Donald Trump in a corporate setting and as a leader, I don't think that he will be that he will be treating everyone else with the same opportunities and respect. Respect.
As we are heading towards the end of this meeting, I would like to conclude that overall,
Wait,
as we
Garvit, wait.
discussed.
Prithvi,
yeah,
you
yeah.
conclude.
So I would like to conclude. So what from hearing from my fellow students, I can say that I mean, if I were to take Donald Trump in a corporate setting, what kind of company? I mean, what is the company is looking for? Either it is looking for a turnaround, a serious turnarounds, or it is looking for an ethical view or building a structure inside the company. If I am hiring Donald Trump, if I want my company to make a name for itself, I mean, Donald Trump can do that. If if I want my CEO to make a decisions, I mean, on his own and to be a strong negotiator, I would definitely hire Trump. But if I want Trump to build my employee relationships and all, I would not do that.
Stop. Right. Cool. So let me start with the feedback very quickly. Firstly, a generic feedback that what should be ideal way to approach this GD or any particular GD for that matter. If you have been already part of any of the mock GDs with us, then there is a different game. But this is something that I have been speaking in prior mock GDs also, that once and when you introduce a topic, it should be a very broad description of the topic, right? It should not be a side-oriented discussion. Like you should not take sides while you are giving introduction of a topic. If you have given any presentation or if you have introduced a topic till now in any particular formal setting, you would understand that introduction of any topic is not about taking sides, but to set the base for others to speak or for public to understand. Right. So this was the common mistake, and this is the common mistake. If you have already seen certain mock GDs with us, you would realize till now that this is the most common mistake a lot of people do. They feel that a introduction is sort of an entry that we have to take in a GD, and it is similar to any other entry that I would take going ahead. But that is not the case. there is a very different nature of introduction and very different nature of conclusion of a GD, right? So once you have introduced the topic, for example, you people picked up on just Donald Trump, right? The topic was Donald Trump in a corporate setting. No one even bothered to discuss about what corporate has to look into this picture, right? What is a corporate, right? Instead of discussing about just Donald Trump, you should have also broken down corporate in different structure. Like you could have talked about different sectors, you could have talked about different policies. You could have talked about how labor in corporates have evolutionized, or how corporate in general have evolutionized. Like Piyush talked about that past, present, future का हम एक framework use कर सकते हैं. So if you are using that framework for US, that I personally believe was not required at that point in time, because we were talking about Donald Trump as a person. So if you talk about Donald Trump's past, present, and future that someone did also, that made complete sense to me. But for me, if you would have talked about the past, present, and future of corporate, that would have made a little more sense to me, right? Because a corporate has a lot of function. Might be Donald Trump is not a right fit for a HR role, but maybe a sales and marketing role. Might be he can crack deals for the company, right? Why not? So that could have been into picture. Then you should have also understood that a corporate has a lot of stakeholder dealing, right? So you could have talked about all of those things. Then a corporate has a value chain. There are internal stakeholders, there are external stakeholders, there are a lot of people that you have to deal with, right? There is a complete value chain. If you are in a FMCG sector, then from procuring the raw materials to manufacturing to sort of delivering it, then the branding part. So please understand a business. You are going for a interview or a group discussion of a B school, and it was very well, I was very stunned to see this, that you people were focusing on Donald Trump rather talking about corporate, right? If you're going for a B school, your focus should be towards speaking more about how business or a corporate would run. Perfect. So if you discuss this topic, talk about this topic in complete sense, then start discussing. If you're introducing the topic, then obviously whatever points come to your mind, you can speak about those points. And when you talk about conclusion, Prudvi, we never include anything new in conclusion. Conclusion means summing up what has been discussed till now in a very crisp manner, right? So we never start a conclusion by saying, I feel or I believe,
Okay.
right? That is not a conclusion. A conclusion should come out from the discussion that group has done till now. Perfect.
Understood.
Cool. So now let me come to the specific pointers that every one of you made in a chronological order as the discussion was done. So the starting was done by Akash. See, Akash, you never ask that may I start or may I not start. If the panelist has clearly given you instruction that after 1 minute, you can start with the discussion. And if you feel that the time is over, please start. Because in this setting, you got this opportunity to ask. If you would do this in a real GD, that happened in this GD as well. You asked to start, but were you the person who started the GD? The answer is no, right? So if you do anything of this sort at the very first entry, your entry will be hijacked by anyone else. So if you get a chance to speak, please speak. And rather than asking that should I start or should I not start or should we wait, right? If the panelist has given you clear instruction, just follow the instruction and start. Understood? So that is why I would say that it was a very poor start. Then second thing that Garvit did. So to be honest, that start was also very much biased. He literally started with an entry instead of giving an introduction to a group discussion, right? So
Yes.
I am not sure if that entry was good or not, but I am very sure that it was not an introduction to a G, right? Then Then you talked about Garvit that he is trying to hide his past. He is trying to create trouble for others, etc., etc. Right? So it is very easy to pass statements. I also know what you were trying to say. You also know what you were trying to say. But this is something like I'm sure Spandan has been in part of some of the mock GDs before. So this is something I have mentioned a lot of times, that if you give a statement, it should be backed by an example, a fact, or a figure, right? So just understand, you people have been preparing for a B school process. You people have been in touch with a lot of current affairs, a lot of blogs, etc., etc., right? A lot of good YouTube content as well. So there is difference between you people as a cohort and a normal people. राइट इफ यू अलाउ मी टू स्पीक इन हिंदी, ज्ञानबाजी बहुत आसान है, ज्ञानबाजी कोई भी कर सकता है. So you have to make sure that you are differentiated from that crowd. And how you will make sure, how you will sound reasonable, by stating facts, figures, and example instead of just passing random statements. Right, Garvit? So this goes for everyone. Whatever point you are trying to make, try to back it up with some fact, figure, example. And mind you, those examples should not be personal. Like if I give you a case related to labor laws, and if any one of you have worked in a company, right? So then again, that example should be structured in a manner that it goes out as a generic example. It should not sound that in my company, in my team, there was a person. This is not how you give examples in a GD. A panelist will not be able to relate to that example. So examples should be generic that are out in public. Like if there would have been case, if it was published, if it was there in media, obviously you can state that, right? But taking example of that, so for example, people say that I have a friend, I have this person in my family. These personal examples won't work over there, right? Then fourth entry was by Akash. Then Akash sort of realized that it is very important to set a base for this GD. That entry was very good, Akash, right? You set a good base for the GD. You talked about a bit of current affairs. You tried to explain Donald Trump as a person. So I will still give you 50% of the marks because you didn't touch upon the corporate part of it. The complete topic was Donald Trump in corporate. So you just talked about Donald Trump, certain you mentioned certain current affairs, certain personality trait about Donald Trump. Well taken. But corporate part was missing. So out of 10, I will maybe give you 5 or 6 marks. At least you tried to set a generic base for others to pick up, right? That was your fourth entry. Coming to fifth entry. So Spandan C, you have to understand you are sitting in a very formal setting, right? We are not here to pass comments that Donald Trump sounds funny, or he might look like a funny person, right? There is a formal way to communicate everything. And we now have to understand that, because after 2 years of our MBA, we would be eventually landing up in a corporate setting, that which is at most formal setting that you would see, right? So we have to start structuring our thoughts in a formal setting. We have to use words that are neutral, that are mellowed down, and we can't comment upon anything in that sense. We should not try to put our personal beliefs. I might find Donald Trump very funny person, but please understand that he is a president of one of the global powers, right? So I can't outrightly call him a funny person or a bad person or a good person, whatever it may be. That are my personal views. And again, if not backed up by example, it has no value. Perfect. Okay. Cool. So this was fifth entry. Then Garvit, again you came into GD. You again highlighted those point ki dark past hai. I agree with someone else, right? Firstly, you were not agreeing with Spandan. You took an entry after Spandan, but you just mentioned it for the sake of it, because neither of your points were aligned with what Spandan already spoke about. So you just said that I agree with Spandan for the sake of it. But in all honesty, you were not agreeing with it, or you were not talking anything aligned with Spandan. You were talking what you earlier mentioned, कि dark past है, ये है, वो है, but again with no example. So I am not sure what is the exact dark past you are talking about, right? Cool. Then हाँ, yes.
सर इसमें जैसे आप बोल रहे हो कि एग्जांपल्स देने हैं, तो यहाँ पे वही जैसे एप्स्टीन आइलैंड का अगर मैं मेंशन करता प्रॉपर विद एग्जांपल कि उसके क्रोनोलॉजिकली फिर उसने आगे कुछ और एक्टिविटीज करी, कहीं पे टैरिफ, कहीं पे क्या, तो वो एग्जांपल इसके लिए सही रहता?
बिल्कुल सही रहता अगर आप कोई कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेटिंग कर रहे हो, तो विद दैट यू हैव टू गिव एग्जांपल्स, राइट? बट ये जीडी बहुत ही ज्यादा, क्या बोलूं, बहुत ही स्ट्रक्चर्ड था। यूजुअली जीडीज ऐसे होते नहीं है, वो फिश मार्केट ही बनते हैं इवेंचुअली, बिकॉज जितने ज्यादा स्टेक्स होंगे उतने ज्यादा पीपल विल फाइट फॉर देयर एंट्रीज, राइट? सो यू हैव टू मेक श्योर, जैसे आई हैव मेंशन्ड अर्लियर ऑल्सो, कि फर्स्टली इफ यू हैव टू मेक 1 or 2 points, राइट, देन आप पहले ही क्लियर कर दो दैट आई वुड वांट टू speak about this particular aspect and I have 2 points to back it up, so that everyone is now aware that okay, Garvit is there to make 2 points, right? अगर कोई आपको बीच में टोकता भी है तो it will look bad on their part that Garvit already said that he has 2 points to make, still they are intervening in your entry, right? सो ये सब कुछ टैक्टिक्स आपको यूज करने पड़ेंगे, वरना आप अगर लंबा एंट्री लोगे तो पीपल विल कट यू आउट। ऑलराइट, देन Garvit, also you mentioned something कि Donald Trump will obviously be in a high position or a top position in a company or a managerial position. So I don't have any context to it. मतलब why would you say that? Like, I am not sure, but because he is a president of a nation, if you are trying to align that he will be definitely in a top position in a company, so I personally don't believe it is nowhere aligned in any sense. No, there is a difference between leading a country in a political setting and leading a corporate as a leader. Right. It is very different thing. So again, you were passing out statements, but I was not able to relate to it because there was no context setting to any of the statements. Right.
सर,
Hmm.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर,
Yes.
जैसे पहले हमने मेंशन किया कि बिफोर हिम गेटिंग इनटू पॉलिटिक्स ही वाज गुड इन मॉनेटरी टर्म्स एंड लाइक ही मेड लाइक गुड फॉर्च्यून फॉर हिमसेल्फ, लाइक प्राइवेट जैसे भी उसने पैसे कमाए। तो
हाँ,
मतलब मैं उस वे से रिलेट करना चाह रहा था उसके बाद वो मेंशन करके
आप जो
कि
करना
वो
चाह रहे थे वो
लीडरशिप
नहीं
स्किल्स।
हुआ, दैट इज वही मैं बताना चाह रहा हूं कि वी शुड नॉट लिव इन अजम्पशंस, राइट? सो आप सब लोगों के पास अगर 10 मिनट हो, देर इज अ वेरी गुड पोस्ट, ब्लॉग ही एक तरीके का, है ना? उसका नाम है कर्स ऑफ नॉलेज। So if you get time, you read about it. It talks about how we assume a lot of things in our mind because we know them, but we are not able to communicate it to the listener. Right? हमारे दिमाग में पिक्चर चल रही होती है, हम 100% सोचते, 70% बोलते, 50% कम्युनिकेट होता है। सामने वाले की कॉम्पिटेंसी नहीं होती तो शायद 40% वो समझ पाता है, राइट? तो दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट शुड वर्क. If you are trying to communicate it in that setting, then you should have told about. In your entry, you nowhere mentioned about his past entrepreneurial journey or whatever fortune he created, right? Nothing was mentioned. So we can't assume कि मैं ये बोल देता हूँ बाकी पैनलिस्ट खुद समझ लेगा. This will never happen. All right. So this was the 6th entry. Then Arshi, you took the 7th entry. It was a good entry, I would say, but there was no new addition to it. So what you did was that what Spandan and some other people spoke out in a very candid manner, you tried to structurize it in a very formal manner. This is what you did, and I appreciate that, but there was no new addition in that. Your point was technically talking about the adverse decision making that Donald Trump is doing at this point in time. And before you also, Spandan, Akash, and other people, Garvit as well, have talked about this, right? So if you make a entry, you made a 7th entry, right? So if you are making 7th entry in a discussion, then you should make sure that that entry should make some sense, right? It should be a new entry. It should do some addition to the discussion, right? Because all of these group discussions have come from the point of view that कि पहले जैसे boardroom discussions होते थे अब भी होते हैं, so they just want to see how, if you are there in a boardroom, how you will behave. So obviously there are a few set of people who just agree with others कि yes, very good point, I agree with you, yes, this point is very good, right? So if you would want to portray yourself as that sort of a person, that is a different thing, but people like and people select who are thinkers in the room and not just believers, right? So try to think, try to relate a lot of things that you have read upon, and try to bring a new aspect to a GD. This goes for everyone. Try to bring new aspect to the GD whenever you make an entry. If your entry is late, so make sure it is impactful. Make sure panelist remembers you. All right. Cool. Then 8th entry. Yes, then Piyush, you came up with a very good strategy to bring in a framework, right? And Spandan also followed that. Matlab Spandan picked up on that framework. So for that, I will give you marks. But if you are pitching in a framework, at least set a base for others that how you are thinking to use a framework. है ना? अब मेरे को मान लो कि बहुत बढ़िया बढ़िया फ्रेमवर्क्स आते हैं, तो मैं कोई भी फ्रेमवर्क आके बोल दूं कि ठीक है, नाउ लेट अस यूज दीज फ्रेमवर्क्स। हो सकता है ना बाकी लोगों को वो सारे फ्रेमवर्क्स नहीं पता हो, right? So if I am introducing a framework, I should also talk about how we can use this framework, right? But still, it was a very good thing to do. You talked about a framework, you tried to bring structure, and you try to sort of bring a flow to the discussion. So it was a very good tactic. But मैं वही चाहता हूँ कि आप अगर ये चीज कर रहे हो तो अगेन खाली ये नहीं कि मैं आया मैंने फ्रेमवर्क छोड़ दिया अब बाकी लोग देखते रहो। आई थिंक सो दैट वाज द ओनली एंट्री यू टुक, राइट? तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए ना कि मैं आया मैंने छोड़ दिया कि चलो आई टुक अ एंट्री, सारे पेस्टल यूज करते हो, फिर मैं शांत बैठा हुआ हूँ। भाई आपने बोला है फ्रेमवर्क यूज करने को तो कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट करो फिर आके आप उसमें, राइट?
Right. Actually, I wanted to ask something कि
Yes.
like before we were talking about like वो dark past की एक बात हो रही थी and कि like how he did in the entrepreneurship before and like आपने कहा कि better framework right time पे stakeholder था इस पे क्योंकि because of corporate setting and different departments.
नहीं नहीं, आई
But
डोंट, मैंने ये नहीं बोला कि वो बेटर फ्रेमवर्क था। मैंने ये बोला कि दैट वाज आल्सो समथिंग यू कुड हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट। बेटर, राइट, अच्छा बुरा कुछ नहीं होता जीडी में, राइट? इट इज
नहीं,
ऑल अबाउट न्यू इनसाइट्स दैट यू कैन ब्रिंग इन।
एक्चुअली मैं ये पूछ रहा था like before we were talking about past only. So मैंने उस
Past,
पे
yes.
पिक करा and तो मैंने उस पे बनाया कि we should talk more about
नहीं
past.
ऐसा कुछ नहीं था, मतलब बिफोर दैट आल्सो पीपल टॉक्ड अबाउट वेनेजुएला का जो रिसेंट अभी उसने हाईजैक करा है, जो है ना, जो चीज है डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प ने जो करा है, राइट? सो इट वाज नॉट दैट पीपल वर जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट पास्ट, बट आई बिलीव या आई डेफिनेटली एग्री अपॉन योर पॉइंट दैट इट वाज नॉट स्ट्रक्चर्ड, राइट? सो हम ये जरूर कर सकते थे कि हम पास्ट डिस्कस करके फिर प्रेजेंट में मूव करें, फिर फ्यूचर के बारे में डिस्कशंस करें, राइट? दिस वाज समथिंग वी कुड हैव डन, बट आई वोंट बिलीव दिस कि हमने पास्ट के बारे में डिस्कशन ही नहीं करा था, मतलब सॉरी प्रेजेंट के बारे में डिस्कशन ही नहीं करा, राइट? Alright, so this was the 8th entry. Then 9th entry, Spandan, that was a very good entry. Debt to GDP wala point was very good. At least something new into the discussion. And also related to business, right? Keep usse भी you were trying to highlight his business acumen, right? So it was a very good entry, right? But that entry towards the end went to a very different direction. कि आपका डेट टू जीडीपी वाला पॉइंट एंड में बहुत ही अलग डायरेक्शन में जा चुका था, राइट? यू आर अगेन टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग रैंडम इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट कंटिन्यूइंग अपॉन दैट पॉइंट। आप डेट टू जीडीपी की जब आपने बात करी, आप उसको कॉर्पोरेट से रिलेट करने का ट्राई करते ना कि ये एस्पेक्ट हाउ कैन आई रिलेट इट टू कॉर्पोरेट,
I think
राइट?
I said he would be managed to bring money to the table no matter what.
हाँ, वहां तक वो चीज सही थी, बट आफ्टर दैट
Okay.
यू स्टार्टेड स्पीकिंग अबाउट सम अदर रैंडम टॉपिक्स ऑल्सो, राइट? तो
The
वो वही हो
Iraq and
गया कि
stuff.
बहुत बहुत
Okay.
ज्यादा ब्रॉड हो गया अगेन। तो either you clearly say कि this could be one of the points and one other point could be this, या second point could be this. So panelist को समझ आना चाहिए कि you are transitioning from one point to other, वरना मेरे को
Structure नहीं
कैसे
था.
पता चलेगा, है ना? मेरे को पता कैसे चलेगा? मेरे को तो ऐसा लग रहा था आप डेट टू जीडीपी बोल रहे हो, फिर मेरे को रियलाइज हुआ अच्छा यू हैव नाउ शिफ्टेड टू समथिंग एल्स,
Okay, okay. Structure
राइट?
नहीं था.
सो
And
स्ट्रक्चर, हाँ एग्जैक्टली, स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए कि वन ऑफ द पॉइंट कुड बी दिस डेट टू जीडीपी, देन अनदर पॉइंट कुड बी दिस एज वेल।
okay,
आप ऐसे बोलते तो मुझे समझ आ जाता कि अच्छा डेट टू जीडीपी वाला खत्म हो गया, दिस इज द सेकंड पॉइंट यू आर ट्राइंग टू पिच इन। मेरे को
got it.
हाफ पे जाके रियलाइज हुआ कि यू हैव स्टार्टेड अ वेरी न्यू पॉइंट नाउ,
Okay.
अंडरस्टूड, बट दैट वाज अ गुड पॉइंट। देन नाइन्थ वाला वाज, then 10th was, yes, Akash, then you took an entry and you gave example of Japan, right? Example was good, but when you try to give a contrasting view to someone, no, it should be in a very respectful manner. We don't argue with someone and we don't directly say that I don't agree with this, or this is something that I don't believe in, right? What you can say is that though that point was correct, right? Or that point was somewhat correct, but I have a very different point of view to it, and it is because of this particular reasoning, and then you start. So what you are doing is that you are acknowledging someone else's point, but again you are pitching in your point, right? So while you pitch
Yes,
your
sir.
point that is contradicting to someone else, you have to be respectful, because जो स्पंदन ने बोला that was not factually wrong, right? So this is something you have to make sure that you use these sort of transition phrases, right? So that आपका जो point है that should look very formal, right? Eventually आप contradict ही कर रहे हो, right? So again, this example that we took last time, that for example, Akash, you are sitting in a meeting with your boss, right? And you know that whatever your boss is speaking is literally crap. You don't believe with any point that your boss is speaking. But can you outrightly say that I don't believe with whatever you are saying? I have a very opposite view. No, obviously not. Else you can speak is that, Sir, whatever you are saying is very good. But if you allow me, I have a very different point of view to it. So if you allow me, can I speak? फिर वो बोलेगा हाँ हाँ बोलो, आपने तो मेरी परमिशन ली है, please speak. And then he might agree upon that as well, right? So basic tactics, but if you use them, it will look very respectful and very formal as well, right, Akash? But that point was good, and it was a justified point. कि Japan has a very different storyline in that sense, right? देन स्पंदन, आपका पॉइंट अगर किसी ने कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर दिया है, तो आप उसको डिफेंड करने मत बैठो। आपने अपना पॉइंट बोल दिया है, किसी ने उसको कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर दिया है, यू आर नॉट इन अ डिबेट, यू आर इन अ ग्रुप डिस्कशन, राइट? तो आप जब उसके बाद एंट्री ले रहे हो, तो आप या तो कुछ और बोलो, राइट, या अपनी एंट्री लो। डिफेंड करने के लिए एंट्री मत लो, राइट?
Okay.
You had a view, someone contradicted your view. Okay, done. You don't have to prove there कि नहीं 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 ऐसा नहीं, मैं तो सही बोलूंगा। वो तो बहुत अच्छा हुआ कि आकाश ने उसका रिप्लाई बैक नहीं करा, वरना वो डिबेट ही शुरू हो जाती है between two people. So a group discussion becomes a
Okay.
debate. So that was very good कि आकाश ने उस पर फिर रिप्लाई बैक नहीं करा कि नहीं नहीं मैं बताता हूँ भाई, राइट?
Got it.
कूल, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे हमने हो गया स्पंदन की एंट्री 12th, 13th. Yes. So, Arshi, then you talked about racism and inequality that Donald Trump is spreading for Americans, right? So, again, give examples. Racism, inequality are very sensitive topic, very, what should I say? Very stark topics to talk about, right? So, if you talk about these topics for any personality, again, I am talking president of a nation, then please give examples. If you know any situation where this was showcased, then only speak, right? Don't talk these extreme terms like racism and inequality without giving any context, right?
So I think someone before me had mentioned the term racism, then I just tried to build on it.
But if someone else has mentioned it, you leave that. I didn't heard अगर किसी ने बोला था, I might have missed that point. But if you are speaking and you start your entry with these pointers, right? So building on a point क्या होता है? For example, if Akash has spoken about racism and inequality, right? So how can you build upon a point? By either giving examples only? No. If there is a point that has already been made in a GD, the only tactic to build upon that point is by either adding something new to that topic or that pointer, or either backing it up by some examples. That, for example, Akash mentioned about racism. So what I could have done, either I have built upon that topic, right? That how it is going on right now in the country, or how it has shaped the future of the country. Either I can take it into a new direction. Secondly, I could back it up with some example that as someone already mentioned about racism and inequality, but I believe that context setting is very important. So that is why I would want to present some examples to it. Right. So this is how you build upon a point. You just don't repeat a point someone else mentioned by changing some words here and there. That is not building on a point. Right. Okay. So this was 13. Uh, then Garvit, I missed it in between, but this was the 11th entry that you talked that Donald Trump will lead well in an organization, etc., etc., etc. Right. I have mentioned this a lot of time, but again, context setting was missing. The only point I had over here is why. Why would he lead as a good leader, or how will he lead as a good leader? What are the instances that can prove this thing? So again, the only problem, this is something I highlighted in bold in your personal case, that context setting and examples were missing in all the entries. So this is something you have to work upon very hard, that you mention good pointers, but then again, it should be a complete pointer. No one is
But
interested in listening to statements just. All right. Then I
yes,
believe I have covered almost all the points. Uh, right. At this
Conclusion
point,
is
I
this.
missed that Akash mentioned a point on entrepreneurship that Donald Trump had in past. So that was a very good point. So if you ask me that, select one person that you would select from this particular panel and take to next round, I personally would take Akash. But if someone say कि एक select करना ही पड़ेगा, if someone gives me a choice, then this particular panel would have been out, right? Because of n number of reasons that I pointed it out here. So this panel would have been a washout for me. Some people have not spoken only. Introduction was not that good. Pointers were presented, but the examples were missing. People were debating in between, right? So all the non-doing activities in a GD were covered. So if I have recording of this, and if I will take a session on what are some don'ts of group discussion, so I can use this. But again, take this opportunity to learn, because now you know what are the things that we don't have to do. Try to inculcate these things, right? And as I mentioned, there were some certain positives also. There were certain entries which were very good, which were really very good. This debt to GDP entry by Spandan, that was very good. Then Akash made two entries about this Japan thing and entrepreneur thing. That was very good. But because he also made a good start, he set up the base for the discussion. Then he also gives some good entries. I will select Akash. If they will tell me select at least two people from the panel, then I will select Akash and Spandan, right? But again, as I mentioned, अगर मेरे को choice मिले, then this panel will be a wash. Now, second thing is that because you see only negatives in the news, when you get opportunity to speak for a topic, don't just go into one direction, right? Try to think some positives also. From a business perspective, what Donald Trump is currently doing, I'm not talking about Venezuela, but from what he did with India, or what he is doing in terms of tariff, his agenda is to promote commodities that are manufactured or that are in surplus in USA, right? And to give industries of USA to the opportunity to grow, right? So please take out some positives also. That is why I always say that when you read up a news, no, you try to analyze a news. Don't just have a point of view that a news channel or a YouTube channel is trying to portray to you, right? Then your viewpoint will become very much biased towards it. So when you read upon a news, to try to build all the positives and negatives on that news, right? Just imagine if I give you a topic that talk about all the positives about Donald Trump. You will find it very hard, because all you are listening in today's scenario are negatives about him, right? So as a critical thinker, as a person who would lead a strategy for a company, you have to be a very direction agnostic person. You have to be a person who can think from multiple directions, right? That is how you will build a good strategy. No, if you already take your biases and build a strategy, then you know that there are some loopholes in that strategy, and there are chances of that strategy not being a success, because you have not seen all the options. You have just worked upon your biases, right? So this is all from my side for this GD. If you have any uh, uh, point that you would want to discuss or any doubts, you can ask me. Anything else, or I have covered most of it? Yes, Piyush.
I wanted to ask, let's say just now what happened, and you're not getting opportunity to speak it in between, like somebody
Right.
is cutting calls and just it's jumping from one another. तो उस time पे क्या करना चाहिए आपके according?
देखो, if you are not getting a chance to speak, then this is also a skill that you lack in a GD, right? You don't get a chance to introduce a topic, I can accept that. But if you don't get a chance to speak, then this is a skill that you have to build. You have to start being a bit assertive. You have to start to learn how voice modulation works in a group discussion, right? I'll give you one tactic. There are a lot of tactics. One of the tactic could be that what Spandan did. And I know I'm not sure if Spandan has that tactic या वो last session में जो हमने discuss करा था वहां से, but that was a very right tactic to use कि आपको कोई बार बार cross कर रहा है when you are speaking, you use that voice modulation, right? And while you use that voice modulation, you always start that pointer with phrases. I'll give you reasoning behind it. Firstly, when you use voice modulation, for example, if I make an entry and I make an entry with a phrase, so how I will make that entry is that. So I agree with what my co-panel said, but I would, and जैसे ही मेरे को पता चल गया कि वो रुक चुका है, I will then mellow down my voice note and I will come in a normal pitch, right? अब इससे दो फायदे हुए, एक तो क्योंकि I was assertive than others, in most of the cases बाकी लोग चुप हो जाएंगे. In most of the cases, in offline GD, your body language also matters, right? You have to look confident, you have to look very assertive. लोग चुप होंगे. This is what I have personally seen. सेकेंड थिंग इज दैट जब बाकी लोग बोल रहे थे, देयर वर फोर क्रॉस वॉइसेस कमिंग इनटू प्ले, अभी तक आपने जो बोला है वो कुछ सेंस बना भी नहीं रहा. दैट वाज जस्ट अ फिलर दैट यू यूज्ड, राइट? तो इसके बाद जब आप पॉइंट यूज करोगे तो इट हैज मेड श्योर दैट पैनलिस्ट आपको पूरा पॉइंट सुनेगा. इसकी जगह आप सीधा पॉइंटर बोलना शुरू कर देते हैं, देयर हैड बीन फोर क्रॉस वॉइसेस, तो आपका पैनलिस्ट जो है वो कहीं बीच में से सुन रहा होता है आपका पॉइंटर, राइट? So it has helped you in two ways. Firstly, it has helped you to make an entry to make sure that others stop and you speak. Second, panelist gets to listen your pointer from very start. Perfect, Piyush. All right. Soumya, you have some doubt, please let me know.
Yeah, so I was today just as a viewer in this GD,
Sure.
but like during the GD, I also made a certain point, like I would have been saying if I had participated, I just
Sure.
wanted to make sure. Like I thought of quoting, starting with the example of Paris Climate Agreement, and then
Okay.
moving towards the corporate ethical responsibility, social responsibility, and how Donald Trump would not have been a good candidate to lead a company or be even an valuable employee in the long term goals of a company, because he might compromise ethics over profitability, which compromises with the
Yes,
long
that is
term
why, yes, Soumya,
brand imaging and everything.
that is a very good point. That is
Yeah.
why I mentioned that for setting up this point, no, it was very important to set the context that how corporates have evolved till now, right?
Okay.
Initially, when we were into that LPG phase, the liberalization, privatization, globalization, it was a very initial stage. So there was only profit into picture, right?
Yeah.
But now it is profit, people, and planet, the 3P approach, right? So
Yeah.
if you would have talked about this evolution of corporates, and then you would have said this point that yes, if we only are focusing on just 1P or out of the 3Ps, Donald Trump would have been a very good choice. He would definitely give good profits to a company. But when we think about the 3Ps, right,
Okay.
then there could have been a problem, because nowadays corporate are focusing a lot upon sustainable growth rather than just
Yes.
growth. So growth, yes, Donald Trump might deliver basis on the personality traits, but sustainable growth is still a question. And then you give examples to it. This is how you make a good and impactful GD entry.
Okay, I didn't think of the three Ps. I thought of like going towards ethics or sustainability and
Yes,
everything, and
100%.
brand imaging, how
See,
you
as I mentioned, you
make
can't,
state your brand. Yeah.
perfect, you can't outrightly say someone unethical.
No.
आप प्लीज समझिए, वी आर इंडियंस, दैट इज व्हाई वी बिलीव व्हाट डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प इज डूइंग इज अनएथिकल, राइट? फॉर अ सेट ऑफ पीपल, दैट इज द थिंग दैट इज ethical. For a lot of Americans also, what he is doing is unethical, but in very different context. This is how even corporate works. Same thing for different stakeholders, could be ethical, could be right. For some stakeholder, it could be unethical, right? So you have to understand that dynamism,
Yes. Okay.
right?
Okay.
So that is why I am trying to say that become a critical thinker, right? Play a devil's advocate. Try to think from a very different lens. What जो आपका पहला पॉइंट दिमाग में आ गया वो रख लो, बट उसको
Hmm.
किस बेस्ट तरीके से आप प्रेजेंट कर सकते हो, वो आपका काम होना चाहिए, राइट? सब लोग अब इतना पढ़ चुके होंगे, व्हाई यू सिट फॉर अ जीडी ना, पॉइंटर सबके पास होंगे, राइट?
Hmm.
सो योर जॉब इज टू present that point in a very impactful manner.
Also, I wanted to ask कि जब भी GD होता है, even while right
Hmm.
now people are discussing or when I participate, what happens is points दिमाग में होते हैं, people keep on saying we have to improvise. उस situation में you're saying कि इतना structured answer, मतलब ऐसा नहीं होता ना कि दिमाग में पूरा सोच ले फिर बोले. You have to
ऐसा
be a
होता
bit
है, ऐसा
spontaneous
होता है,
also.
सी आई विल टेल यू, सो आई वोंट नेम द कंपनीज, मतलब बी स्कूल प्रोसेसेस में नहीं होता है जीडीज, बट आई वोंट नेम द कंपनीज. In my summers and my finals, I was placed very early. I just got opportunity to sit for 2-3 GDs at max. But I cleared all the GDs. The reasoning is that I'll tell you my strategy, just think if it will work for you or not. Firstly, my first tactic was to give an entry, right?
Okay.
Once you introduce a topic, you will get a brownie point. A person introducing a topic, a person concluding a topic always gets brownie points. But then it is a two-edged sword. आप इंट्रोडक्शन देके खराब कर दोगे तो आप फिर बाहर होगे सीधा. सो उसके लिए तो स्ट्रक्चर सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. सेकेंडली, व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कि स्ट्रक्चर लाना आसान कैसे होगा, आई टेल यू हाउ, what exercise you can do to do this. You see a video, मान लो आपने कोई पॉडकास्ट देखा, राइट? 10-15 मिनट देखो, 20 मिनट देखो. Try to gather all the pointers that was discussed in that podcast. आपने कोई आर्टिकल पढ़ा, ट्राई टू गैदर ऑल द पॉइंट्स दैट वाज डिस्कस्ड, राइट? नाउ टाइमर चलाओ और 1 मिनट के अंदर उस पॉइंटर को, जो भी सारे इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंटर है, उनको स्ट्रक्चर तरीके से बोलने का ट्राई कर, राइट? नाउ यू वुड से कि ये बोलने में आसान है, बट ऐसा कर, आई टेल यू ये बहुत हेल्पफुल होता है. इवन इन योर इंटरव्यूज ऑल्सो, नो, व्हेन यू सिट फॉर योर प्लेसमेंट इंटरव्यूज, अभी बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस होंगे जो आप प्रिपेयर करके जाओगे. इन प्लेसमेंट इंटरव्यूज मोस्टली क्वेश्चंस होंगे जो आपने प्रिपेयर नहीं करे होंगे. सिचुएशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चन हो गए, ये क्वेश्चन वो क्वेश्चन, राइट? तो वहां पे रैंडम चीजें बोलने से अलग, यू व्हेन यू टॉक इन स्ट्रक्चर, नो, इट विल क्रिएट अ वेरी गुड इंप्रेशन. तो वो हैबिट आपको बिल्ड करनी ही पड़ेगी. इवन when you go in B school, when you sit for class presentation, when you sit for case discussions, this habit is required. Then when you join a corporate setting, कोई आपको टाइम नहीं देगा कि आओ सौम्य 10 मिनट के लिए बताओ आप क्या बोलना चाहते हैं. You have to be very crisp and to the point. So you build this habit because this will be required for entire career journey.
Thank you.
Okay, Arshi, you raised your hand.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, I was not aware of some of the points that the others were making,
Okay,
and that's why I couldn't make a new point because I was
okay.
not updated fully. So, what should I do about that?
See, two things you can do before group discussion. Before, I mean, from today till any group discussion you see or have to participate, start reading more. If you don't like reading, start watching more. I am also one of a person who don't like reading at all. But start watching more. Start watching good YouTube channels जहाँ पे they cover recent current affairs, they analyze recent current affairs, right? Start to watch a few YouTube channels like World Affairs है, Study IQ है, right? Then there is Think School, जो case studies discuss करता है, right? Start watching these channels. Markets by Zerodha, if you are interested in a bit of finance, economics, and all of those things. Then apart from that, start using chat gpt. Pick up news, analyze with that news with the help of chat gpt, right? Build knowledge. आप ये बोलो कि मेरे को नॉलेज नहीं है और आप मेरे को कोई तरीका बता दो मैं जीडी में कुछ कर दूं, नहीं होता ऐसा, राइट? आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि फेमिलियरिटी ऑफ टॉपिक्स नहीं होगी एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम, आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट. दूसरा चीज ये है, जो भी मैंने आज तक पढ़ा है और जो भी मैं कल पढ़ने वाली हूँ, हमेशा ट्राई टू रिलेट टॉपिक्स. If you read topic in silos, that will be a very big problem. फिर तो आपके लिए there is a ocean to read upon, right? So try to relate topic. If I read something about Donald Trump tariff thing, then can it be also related to the EU FTA that India signed, right? So if you read about geopolitics, politics, it is somewhat connected. Then if you talk about India, a lot of things are connected, right? If you talk about industries, it is geopolitically connected. So eventually, a lot of things are interconnected, right? तो ट्राई टू स्टैब्लिश दोस कनेक्शंस कि मैंने एक बार जो एक चीज पढ़ी है वो मैं और जगह भी यूज कर सकता हूँ, राइट? So this is how it will work. You read more, you watch more, build more knowledge. Second step is try to build interconnections between what you read. Third step is when you sit for a GD, try to look what others are speaking. And if you're not able to relate what they are speaking, but you are aware of the topic, try to pitch in new ideas. राइट? नो वन इज सेइंग यू कि बाकियों को जो पता है आपको वो पता होना चाहिए, आपको टॉपिक के बारे में कुछ पता है तो आप अपना बताओ, राइट? दैट इज व्हाट द होल पॉइंट ऑफ डूइंग अ ग्रुप डिस्कशन इज कि आपको भी सब पता है जो आकाश को पता है, फिर तो मैं आकाश से ही पूछ लूंगा ना, बिकॉज नॉलेज तो ओवरलैप ही कर रही है। ग्रुप डिस्कशन करवा ही इसलिए रहा हूँ क्योंकि आकाश को 4 चीजें पता है, अर्शी को 4 चीजें पता है, आप दोनों मेरे को 8 चीजें बताओ, राइट? दैट इज द होल एसेंस। परफेक्ट,
Yes, sir.
ऑलराइट।
Thank you.
आकाश,
मेरा एक डाउट है कि सर, एज इन कि अगर मेरा कोई दोस्त जैसे रेवंत, पृथ्वी या फिर एनीबडी इन दैट केस, अगर कोई कुछ टॉपिक के बारे में बता रहा है बट वो कुछ एग्जांपल से बैक नहीं कर रहा है, तो क्या मैं एक अलग उसका वो लेके उसको एग्जांपल के साथ देके विदाउट एनी एक्स्ट्रा इन्फॉर्मेशन ऐसे अगर प्रोवाइड करूँ, विल इट बी सफिशिएंट?
मतलब वो आपको एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट्स नहीं देंगे उसके, मैं आपको ये बता दूं। देखो, जीडी क्या ना एक मैट्रिक्स होता है, जीडी पॉइंट करने का एक मैट्रिक्स होता है, राइट? कि आपने कितने न्यू आइडियाज पिच इन करे, कितने न्यू, आप ऑब्वियसली नंबर ऑफ एंट्रीज होता है, इंट्रोडक्शन करा या नहीं करा, कंक्लूजन करा के नहीं करा, हाइजीन पॉइंट्स, वो सब चीजें होती है। आपने किसी को इंटरप्ट तो नहीं करा, बॉडी लैंग्वेज कैसी थी, हाइजीन पॉइंटर्स पे के मार्क्स होते हैं। उसके बाद आपने जो एंट्रीज करी, क्या उसमें आपने कुछ नया बताया या नहीं बताया, राइट? आप अपनी नई एंट्री नहीं कर रहे हो और हर किसी की एंट्री पकड़ पकड़ के बस एग्जांपल दिए जा रहे हो और आपको लग रहा है कि मैं सेलेक्ट हो जाऊंगा। आई डोंट थिंक सो, बिकॉज एग्जाम्पल तो चलो, मैं प्रैक्टिकली अगर बात बताऊं, आप कितना सोच पा रहे हो वो मेरे को जज करना है ना? अगर मान लो मैं कुछ आज बोल रहा हूं और मेरे को नहीं पता, मैं 1 सेकंड में गूगल करके उसको बैक कर दूंगा, राइट? बट वो गूगल करने के लिए मेरे को वो इंसाइट होना चाहिए, राइट? तो थिंक एवरीथिंग प्रैक्टिकली। एक दो जगह आप ये चीज करते हो, इट लुक्स गुड, बट आप पूरे जीडी में यही कर रहे हो कि मैंने अपना तो कुछ बोला नहीं, बस मैं हर किसी का पॉइंट पकड़ के उसके एग्जाम्पल ही दे रहा हूं, तो देन इट इज ऑफ नो वैल्यू, है ना? यू आर जस्ट फॉलोइंग।
सर, सर कंपैरेटिवली अगर मेरे पास एक नया टॉपिक है बट विदाउट एनी बैकिंग ऑफ एग्जांपल, और मेरे पास एक पुराना किसी और का टॉपिक है बट विद एग्जांपल, तो विच वन शुड आई प्रेजेंट फर्स्ट और विच शुड आई प्रेजेंट?
टेक्निकली तो इफ यू आर एग्रीइंग टू दैट पॉइंट, तो पहले तो आप उस पॉइंट को ही कंटिन्यू करोगे, अदरवाइज इट विल क्रिएट डिस्क्रिपेंसी। देयर इज अ पॉइंट ए, यू पिच्ड इन पॉइंट बी, नाउ यू कंटिन्यू पॉइंट ए, तो डिस्क्रिपेंसी है। तो बाय फ्लो ऑल्सो ऑब्वियसली यू कंप्लीट दैट पॉइंट फर्स्ट एंड देन यू पिच इन अ न्यू पॉइंट। लाइक for example, a person mentioned, like example, Akash mentioned something and I agree with that point, but I also want to mention a new point. What I'll do is that I definitely agree with what one of my co-discussions said, या co-participant said, that ये point ABC, and I would also want to back it up by some examples just to give in some insights. वो point खत्म हो गया, and just to give a new perspective to the discussion, yeah, just to add some new point to the discussion, I also have this to speak, and then you speak whatever is your new point, right? फ्लो देते जाओ, हर बात को रैंडमली मत कर दो कि आपने उसका पॉइंट खत्म कर दिया एंड ऑल्सो आप ये, तो एंड ऑल्सो तो मैं अपने पॉइंट के कंटिन्यूएशन में भी बोल सकता हूं ना, तो क्लियर फ्लो देते जाओ कि ये मैं उसके पॉइंट को बैक करने के लिए बोल रहा हूं, अब मैं अपना नया पॉइंट शुरू कर, राइट?
यस सर।
Chalo, cool. Then I believe it was a good discussion, and you would have a few learnings with you that you inculcate in next mock GDs, right? All the best for all the upcoming processes you have, and
Thank
may
you
you
sir.
convert your best call this year. Chalo, cool.
Thank you
Bye
sir.
bye. Good night.
Night sir.